Happy bonus Sunday. I'm doing this because I'll talk about something I haven't talked about in a while. I'll talk about cars. Seeing people are so interested in cars. It's their life. At one time, that's how it was for me with 4 cars. 2 Pontiacs, a Ford, and a Chevy. These days, it's basic transportation as far as I'm concerned, I had my fun. I'm not trying to relive my youth again, I'm happy in the journey that life has taken me. I appreciate it for what it was at that time in my life. My life's much different these days. I get asked that, oh yeah, bro, how come you're not building anything? The answer is very simple. I do not want to. I can't see myself out there again. The things I enjoy doing on the weekends, well, now in the winter, can't do much indoors. Putting the good weather out with the crew on a run, doing things with my family and Auntie Billy and my daughters, and now my grandson, I'll be able to start doing things with him come the summer months. I can't see myself wanting to spend a fucking weekend out there leaning over a fender, putting in a cam, doing this. I know how I am. That's what stopped me from buying my friend's son's Mustang GT a couple years back. I even I did a video on the car. And by the way, he ended up getting his license revoked for life. It was 5 years initially, then some other issues came up, and he ended up getting it revoked for life. It was pretty nice. Just had a little munch in the front quarter. I could have pounded it out with a fucking hand sledge and picked up a headlight bucket in a boneyard, for 85 bucks. I got friends, work at body shops, take it over there, they hit it, color match it. It was like a metallic green. Throw them a few bucks for the paint and their time off hours, and the car would have sat me around 1,700 bucks. Just had a little chatter in the clutch, throw all bearing, back tires were a little from him, putting his foot into it. I had driven it a few times. That was the year, I forget, 96, 97, the year they got away from the Fox Body and they went to that new one. But a lot of people didn't like that style. And that's when they came up with the Cobra, 300 horse, 5-liter, 32 valve. And he had swapped out the engine already. He found a wrecked Cobra, he got the engine for cheap, had it swapped out. The car ran good. 373 gear, factory gear, posi in the rear end. Decent little car. I could have got it for dirt cheap and actually thought about buying it. And what stopped me was I said, tell your son, this is what I'll give him for it. I think I offered him like 1,600 bucks, 1,700 bucks. And I got home that night. I found myself online already looking at B&M Pro Chargers, looking at 410, 411 gear sets to swap into it, big Hayes heavy duty clutch. I already found myself how I used to be. And I'm like, I don't want to do all this fucking work on this thing. Fuck this, man. I got the little red buggy over here. That's a lot quicker than that. And I don't even like driving that fucking thing. My son-in-laws drive it more than I do. I'm thinking about selling it. I only bought it because after my black one got wrecked by a drunk driver, I impulsively wanted to get another one, and I'm sorry I did. I'd drive the Infiniti and the Acadia a lot more than that fucking thing. My son-in-laws take it out, especially in the good. Now it's put away for the winter with my bike. Hey, Dad, they call me Dad. Hey, Dad, we take the car this weekend, go for a ride, take it for the whole weekend. They're taking it for a week at a time, and I tell them, make sure, don't park it out in the streets and shit, put it in your driveway at night, you know what I mean? So hopefully I don't get vandalized or nothing. It probably won't, but I am a little careful with it. But I really don't give a fuck much about it, It's just a car to me. It means nothing more, nothing less, just a car. A car I do not enjoy. A car I'm sorry I bought. That's how it is with cars and me these days. But I remember how it used to be. And what's inspired this is I put up something on the community. I used to see them come up once in a while. And I had quite a few saved. But they do comparisons in years. And this one, it was 1970, year 1970. It had what, GTX? What the hell else was it? Chevelle L78 396. And another car, I can't think of it right now. And I left a little commentary on the community with it. I said, how come they're listing, the GTX was a 440. Chevelle was the L78 396. I said, how come they don't list the LS6 454, 450 horse, I don't feel like I'm on my laptop. You know, I'm going to go look now because it's fucking bugging me. No, it's fucking bugging me. I shouldn't have said that to myself. Where are we? Where are we? Oh, there we go. 70 Judge GTO. It's on the community. I put it up there. With the 400 Ram Air. That's got the Ram Air 3 in it. According to what it says. And I thought, why wouldn't they, match it up against, the top dog 454 LS6? Even in that, a lot of number fudging and a lot of shit went on that really kind of left people's heads spinning. Why would they do that? At Chevy, Corvette was supposed to get the LS7 rated at 460 horse. Never found its way into the Corvette. Only the Chevelle got the top dog. The Corvette got a 390 horse rated version with a hydraulic lifter. In the Corvette, rated at 390 horse. It was actually closer to 420. There was a reason for that too. And the same engine that downgraded 454 you could get in the Chevelle. 1971 already, it got detuned a little bit more. Now it was down to 360, 365 horse. I know Corvette owners were not too happy. In 1970, they were waiting on this big engine, now the 454. And this thing was the same 390 base horsepower as the base 427. Then you could get, tri-powered versions, upgraded 427s, 420, 435 horse, 430 horse. The 088, wink, 430 horse, yeah, okay. A lot of number fudging went on. Marketing purposes, whatever, who knows. But that 396, there's marketing strategy involved in cars. And at that time, there was this horsepower war. And some people were flaunting their horsepower, actually overrating a few engines. Most of them were underrating their engines. And that was primarily due to, at this time, insurance companies were coming down with heavy premiums on high horsepower, high performance vehicles, regardless of the manufacturer. Ford was the biggest, obvious culprit. Hold on a second. My daughter. Yeah. I'm going by her house this afternoon, watch football with my son-in-law Ryan and my Artemis. 335 horse. With 330 horse. The Corvette 428. 335 horse in the SGJ Super Corvette. And a lot of people don't really know about the history of these vehicles, what they actually were, what many option packages like Super Corvette, what it really means, what you got for that Super. It was the same engine. I had one. My 70 Boss 302. 302 was, it needed a complete rebuild, and if I'm going to spend the money to go through this, I like big engines. I looked around, I found a wreck 1969 Mach 1 SCJ Super Corvette. That's when I found out the difference between the SCJ and the CJ, and there was no fucking difference in the engine itself. Same fucking engine. But I went through it. I had, I was lucky. And we're still friends to this day. Ray Charles. Yes, Ray Charles, like the blind black piano player. Ray's Automotive, his father owns, until he retired. Ray took it over. He still runs and operates it to this day. A machine shop and parts vendor. Stock and high performance parts. He doesn't call himself a speed shop. You can pretty much get what you need there. About 70% of it, unless it's some real odd rare engine you have, and you need a specific camera, this or that. But, after hours, man, he did my head work, cutting, porting, valve work, boring, honing. I did all the disassembly, brought it there in pieces, all the reassembly when I got it back home, but I got it done for free, so that's why I was able to do things with my two Pontiacs as well, and my Chevy, the last car. My first car, I don't talk about it much because I only had it for 2 days. I had it for over a year. Bought it when I was 15. Had to wait a year to get my fucking license. Found to get it on the road 2 days later. I go by my friend's house. He had a real nice 71 Olds W30. 455, man. A beautiful fucking car, man. Beautiful fucking car. You know, and even that car was all stock trim. Went to New England Dragway. I ran a 14.5. 14.5 at 97 miles an hour. A lot of these cars were not as quick as a lot of people want to believe. Oh, my friend had one. But yeah, you know, gearing plays a big part in it. What you have done with the engine, increased horsepower, increased torque. Torque is so important. They've been cammed, better intakes, better carburetors, header, better exhaust system. You know, people don't stop and think that. The cars that we remember, oh, my friend had a 340 Duster, man, ran 13.2. Those cars were very high 14-second cars. Even the AAR Cuda, the Trans Am TA Challengers, Boss 302, the early 302 Z28s. These were all mid to high 14-second cars. You ever see pure stock drags on here where guys have pure stock cars? They have to be pure stock. I think I found a video when I put it up on community recently, within the last few weeks. Look at the times these things are running. Some of them are in the low 15s, 15 flat, 15-1. Things have been done to cars that we remember. Not every car lives up to the myth and the legend that they made out to be. You know. By the way, before I get into Chevy, they all play their tricks. The only difference with a Super Cobra jet was that with a Super Cobra jet in the Mach 1, or if you got it in a Torino, you got a bigger radiator, larger capacity for better cooling. You got an oil cooler. And you got a 430 gear. Same engine. You got a top loader 4-speed, or you got a C6 automatic. You know, same engine. And they were closer to 375, 390 horse. You know, Boss 429, 375 horse. Yeah. Now that's an engineer that's got a real funny story to it, and it's not a big. Boss 429 was a low 14-second car. Purpose of that engine was to get it qualified to get into NASCAR. It's the only reason why Ford came out with that engine. It was not intended. A 428 Cobra jet would eat it alive in a quarter mile. A well-tuned, bone stock SCJ, CJ 428 could get into a 13, 13.8, 13.85, around there, and barely break 100 miles an hour, 102 miles an hour, you know. But that Boss 429 was a mid-14-second car, you know. I don't know how some guys come up with some of their numbers on here, but if you actually research it, when they came out at that time, they were tested by several different magazines. You see the real deal with these cars. You know, a base 396 Chevelle was a 15-second car. 15 flat, 15-1. They're heavy cars. You know, it was only the LS6 that finally got into a 13. It got fairly deep into a 13, 13.4, 13.5. You know, it ran with the Hemi Cuda and Buick, you know, GSX Stage 1. Even the old W30 couldn't really run with them. The old W30 was a very big, heavy car. Beautiful cars, you know, good performance. They call it the businessman's hot rod. Very plush and heavy. Not many with 4-speeds. They mostly had automatics, and the gimmick they had was that Hurst, his and hers, you know, swat in the side, pull it down for a second, third with a turbo 400. That's what my friend had in his. You know, very comfortable riding car, you know what I mean? But it wasn't excessively quick. And the Boss 429, you know, the Boss 302 was only one tick slower in a quarter mile. Boss 302 had a bigger, better carburetor. And the Boss 302 fits into the same category as the Z28 302. Oh, those are really 400 horse. They weren't 290 horse. How do you come up with that? Do you even know how these engines were born from? No, the Boss 429 was like simply to get into NASCAR. They weren't concerned about putting out a car that was going to terrorize the streets and eat up Hemis and this and that. They had no intention of ever doing that. They just needed to get something out to the public. They could have produced like 500, the way it was with Chrysler with the wing cars. They had to produce so many street versions before it would be allowed, you know, to race on NASCAR sanctioned tracks and events. That was the purpose of that engine. And if I'm not mistaken, I've only seen one in my life that was apart. It don't even have head gaskets. It has O-rings. And I heard those things are a fucking nightmare. You know, just one O-ring slips somewhere and you can't see it, you know. Anyway, it's not as great an engine as it's cracked up to be. It's made to be, you know, to run what they call, make all its power upstairs. Wide open throttle on a NASCAR oval track. That's what these engines are built for. They weren't built for stop and go, dead stop, green light, sidestep a clutch, punch the gas, drag racing. These cars were not, these engines were not intended for that. You know, like I said, even the Boss 302, a much smaller cubic inch displacement, had a bigger CFM and a better carburetor. And those Ford Autolite carburetors were pretty good, by the way. I don't know if any of you have ever really seen them. They look like a Harley. They're a very good carburetor. Demon has that same style as well. I had a Demon carb. It was very good. Mostly I ran Harleys. I ran Dominators, 1000s and 1100s. But, you know, Boss 302 is not a real street beast. The Boss 429. When it gets to the Chevy 302s, E28s, oh, they made 400 horsepower with that 290. Do you even know how that engine was thought of? You know? What it was made of? Not many people even know this. That 290 horsepower rating, even though they hadn't gone to the net horsepower rating that they kind of became standardized in like 1971, and then it, you know, halfway through 1971, 1972 already, everything was net rather than the old gross horsepower ratings. And the gross horsepower ratings, gross to net is about an 18% difference. Your net rating is going to be 18% less of what it would be rated at if it was still rated by the old gross scale rating. So that 290 horsepower 302 was actually around 320 horse. Okay. How do you get 400 horsepower out of this thing? Oh, you can get them. It's like I said before. Oh, my friend had, yeah, they bored and stroked those things. Well, they didn't, well, a lot of them, they ended up being 350s. What you don't realize, people don't realize. And I had one for like 2 fucking days for my friend's mother hit it and fucked it up. I drove it at her. And those things, you can only get them with a 4-speed. It wasn't until 1969, 1970, when now they were able to get a turbo 400 in those things. They became a little more streetable. But those cars were real pigs, man. You know, same with the Boss 302, you know. They didn't make enough low-end torque to peel the skin off a fucking grape. That's why they didn't come with automatics. That's why they came, the Z28 came standard with a 410 gear. Boss 302 with a 430 gear. You needed that gear to get you moving off the line when you sidestep a fucking cluncher. That thing would fall right over on its fucking face. If you put an average 355 gear, that's what a lot of these cars had, 355, 373 once in a while. You might see a 390. You know, unless it was an SEJ, now your gears are running over 4. Even a lot of Mopars, Roadrunners, GTXs, 350, 355 gear. A lot of them had 323 gears in them. Pontiac never went gear happy. 342 was the most you got. With a 4-speed, a 323 with an automatic, whether it was a Firebird, a Trans Am, a GTO, it don't fucking matter. You know, just gear alone will give you a second. Just gear alone can cut a second off your fucking quarter-mile time if all you want to do is race that car. You don't care about gas mileage on the street. You take it on the highway. You don't want to be going 70 miles an hour and your fucking engine screaming up at 5,000 RPM. You know what I mean? No. People that drive their cars, and that's why dealers, you know, manufacturers put them out, knowing these cars are going to be street-driven. Now, what you would do to them after to race them, now that's on you. But what was put out from the factory, there's a lot of legend and myth to cars that these cars are nowhere near what's claimed about them. You know how Mopar wanted to get, you know, these wing cars into, you know, NASCAR. They had to build so many. Ford, with their Boss 429. At that time, Trans Am Series, SCCA Trans Am Series, was a big-time thing, man. It was a very popular racing series. Mustang came out first. Mustang was dominating, you know. And back at that time, if you look at them, you saw fucking MGs and Triumph TR6s and Porsches and shit in that series. You didn't see too many American cars. You know, Ford, I think, was, it might have been another one. I forget what car it was. I know AMC even got into it later with Mark Donohue. And even Craig Breedlove, I think, at one time. And they even had the red, white, and blue tribute cars that were selling to the public. Javelins, Mark Donohue tribute car, whatever, you know. And then in that series at that time, it did change with, and that's when Mopar was able to get into it. They could now run the 340. At that time, they had a 305 cubic inch limit with engines. Well, Ford had a 289. They had a 302. They were fine. They ran a highly modified 302. Chevy, 283 wasn't going to cut it. 327, they had a real good 327, but it was too big. And Chevy had that 360 horse. Yeah, I know they had a 375 horse fuel version in the early Corvettes, 63, and the early 60s Corvettes, mechanical fuel injection, 375 horse. But in the Novas and Camaros and what you pretty much got out on the street, later in the 60s, it'd been watered down, no more mechanical fuel injection. 360 horse, which is still pretty decent. No gross rating. Take away 18% of that. Now you got to figure out something. Chevy didn't have a 302, but they wanted to get into Trans Am, so they had to have a 302. What the fuck did they do? They took the quick, easy way. They took that 360 horsepower 327, left it alone. The only thing they did was pull the crank out of it, and they put a 283 crank in it and stroked it down, and that's how they got that 302 magical cubic inch number. But it's a 327. Go order it. If it's completely stuck, go order a cam. Go order an intake. Go order exhaust manifolds. Go order heads. Look for a water pump for a 302. It's all going to come up as a part number listing for a 327. It's a 327, just stroked down with a 283 crank. It's a real quick, easy fix to get them into Trans Am SCCA racing. Now with more cubic inches, now with 327 cubic inches versus 302, it made 360 gross horsepower. How the fuck is this thing going to make 400 with fewer cubic inches? It ain't never going to happen. It did not happen. That was about a 320, 3.25 horse engine. Now, once it got into the hands of SCCA, Trans Am Racing Team, now they went hog wild, and they got that thing up to 400 horsepower easily, if not more. They all did with their engines. So people say, oh yeah, that was 400 horse. Yeah, okay. You keep believing that. If the most it could make in its original trim was 360 as a 327, how the fuck do you think it's going to make, a lot more horsepower with a lot fewer cubic inches? You tell me, seeing you know so fucking much. They all played tricks with numbers. Pontiac did the same thing with their Ram Air engines. GTO always got a 10 horsepower rating higher than, 370 horse, 360 in a Trans Am. Same engine. I think I was telling Will about this. Some guys figured it out. What they figured out was that what they did was they wanted to keep the GTO as the top dog performance model. So what they do, they put a different carburetor linkage on the Quadrojets. You don't notice it when you're driving and you put your foot to the floor, you automatically assume everything's opening up, right? Well, they put a linkage on it that it only allowed secondaries in that Quadrojet to open till 85%. So if someone was in the car, the engine's off, and you push that flap down in the back, and you could look down and see it. You had somebody get in the car and mash it to the floor, you'd see that those secondaries were not opening all the way. They were like that. When there's GTO, they open all the way. That's where you got your extra 10 horsepower. A lot of number fudging went on. A lot of number fudging. A lot of myth and legends to cars. And a lot of these cars that people think, there were very, very, very few 13-second cars back then. Very few. You can count them on one hand, if not less. All these small block cars, these 302s, 327s, LT1350s, these are all mid to high 14-second cars. All of them. None were any real better than the other. But in some people's minds, they were 13-second cars. Well, because I saw, yeah, we all know somebody that knew somebody. People knew me that had two 11-second Pontiacs and a 12-second Ford. The Chevy never got raced at a track. I was at the tail end of that bullshit at that time. I had had enough of it for 13 years, and my life was changing, and I was going in the fucking military. So I was already getting away from cars back then. There's a lot of legend and myth to cars. And the funny thing is, a lot of people don't even realize the origins, what they were born and bred from. And I think some people that think they know so much about cars really don't know shit. And I think it's understandable in some ways because a lot of people never really knew about these cars back in the day when they came out and saw actual testing numbers. All they have to go by is what I went by, what I saw on the street, what I saw at New England Dragway, what I saw at Englishtown. None of these cars were stock. None of my cars were stock. In the times that we ran at the track, you know, there was no model of any of these cars we saw racing on the street at the track that any of these cars being sold off a dealer lot in pure factory stock trim, these cars would never come close to, okay? There, how's that for a happy Sunday? You happy now? I know some people just want to hear about cars. How's that? Have a great day. My daughter had texted me. She asked me to do a favor, pick her up something before I go over this afternoon. So I'm going to go do that now. Have a great day.